Hello and welcome to my patch notes rundown for the 14th of December. This week's patch notes has a lot of notable changes, coming in with one of the mildest ninja strikes which focuses on Diango, coupled with significant Raksha nerfs and fixes. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Using the search function in the bank will now also display any results from Diango's storage. A new right-click option has been added to the item slots in the costume room interface, which allows you to deposit or withdraw all items in a set at the same time. Completing all boss collection logs will now award the Golden Reaper title. Lee was the first person to achieve this title as of yesterday, and this is how it looks like in-game and in chat. You are not required to have the Golden Praesial title, which involves obtaining all intricate chests from Next Angel of Death. Players will now receive an update message whenever their invention machines have finished processing their inputs, run out of resources, or run out of charges. The mechanized siphon interface has been updated. Even though I understand that they're trying to streamline their various interfaces, I do prefer the older version with the darker background and the gold text. However, the only applicable feedback I have is to remove the 0 before a 1-digit number. Decreased Raksha's base auto attack and special move damage by 25%. This is a huge nerf. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction to people complaining who have barely attempted the boss and expect to breeze through all types of content. You're expected to die and struggle on your first several attempts of a new boss. That's what makes eventually killing the boss so satisfying and learning the boss fun. It's meant to be a challenge. I died at least 100 times in the first few days, but because I stuck at it and was determined to improve, I now have a PR of 3 minutes. Every boss should be difficult when you first try it. Learning the timing, understanding the mechanics, adapting your muscle memory, and so on. I feel like there's a lot of people in the same boat, but the negative voices complaining about the boss being too difficult eclipses our positive experiences. Raksha's shadow-infused power buff has been increased from 0.5% to 1% damage per shadow energy. This is not a good enough compensation to the nerf. You rarely reach 15% in a kill, let alone 100% where it reaches the same strength as pre-nerf Raksha, as shown on this graph posted by Mod Ryan. Decreased Raksha's rockfall damage by 50%. I think overall this is a good change since the location of the rockfalls were heavily RNG based, which in turn made it frustrating to deal with. Raksha's tail chain no longer blocks player movement. Even though it's insignificant, I personally don't like this change, as it used to force players to either execute their blade dive correctly or move to blade dive the next set. Also, it was a very obvious obstruction, unlike the blocking at the back of the room on the last phase. Increased Raksha's melee affinity from 45 to 55. I went ahead and tested the accuracy rates, which shows that you're now 100% accurate with Berserker Aura, excluding any kind of debuff like Quake or Statius Warhammer. However, range still sits at 65 affinity, which gives it 100% accuracy without an aura, and I personally think when it comes to bosses, they should always have the same affinity across all combat styles. I think the boss mechanics and the style itself should be the reason people use a certain style, not the splash rate. Raksha will no longer override his melee attack animation with a walk animation. One of the pros of Raksha is that it doesn't have any animation stalls, and now no longer has any animation overrides, which usually displaces bosses and monsters from their actual position. However, instead of allowing the boss to move and use the animation at the same time, they've opted for it to be locked into place when using an animation. Raksha will no longer randomly change target in duo mode. Fixed an issue where a black screen appeared if the player died while transitioning to phase 4 of a Raksha encounter. Fixed an issue that caused players to get stuck under Raksha both during and after the final phase of the encounter. Menified gift rewards are now stackable. The Desert Pantheon aura can now be reused once a double XP event has concluded. And that's it for this week's patch notes. I'm really surprised that Greater Ricochet wasn't nerfed, since it single-handedly pushes range DPS far above that of melee. A lot of the Raksha quality of life changes were really nice, but the damage nerf unfortunately makes the encounter much less challenging and fun. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and take care.